Harrison Price for Thursday, May 29th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. I'm Matt. He's Blake. Mike and his four Junos hitting switches and conducting
over
things.
There, yeah. We're here. He's there.
Mm-hmm.
How's your night last night?
Well, I went to the Caps game. As you know, it's easier for me to get to those Wednesday games than it is the Saturday 7:30 kickoffs. I prefer the afternoon starts on the weekend. And so I thought, wow, great opportunity here to go and catch the Caps. First time I've seen them live this year, up against a quality opponent, right? Heading into the huge game on Sunday. And then a whole lot of nothing happened. That was not one for the time capsule.
I got into my chair for the to work the game.
Mm-hmm.
Took a picture of the empty BC Place. This big screen had the matchup on it, and I said, should be a good one.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
Sorry.
And look, they played before their smallest crowd this year, but yesterday was so far and away the best day we've had this year. I think they were competing against a pretty good opponent last night in the
Mother Nature.
Mother Nature, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think if we've had several weeks of nice weather or whatnot, that's a different equation. But Wednesdays in the school year is difficult. Let me ask you this,
and to be clear, it was not the Whitecaps' fault. That was Minnesota's
right?
doing.
Yeah, Minnesota sucked the air out of the ball, and anyways,
yeah.
But I was thinking this. Why does MLS do the full slate of Saturday games and not Sunday games when you're not up against the NFL? Does that not give you Thursday, Sunday opportunities that might be better for live audiences?
Well, they have the big Sunday night football.
Right, I understand that. But why not bring your Saturday night standalone game and maybe do another game or two on Saturday afternoon, but do the fuller slate on the Sunday?
They generally have 2 to 3 on Sundays with the one Sunday night soccer game.
It's usually 2 standalones. It's an afternoon standalone and then an evening standalone.
They try to. I think they're still in the process of trying to figure out what's the right mix to grab the most eyes for Major League Soccer.
Yeah, and I know Friday doesn't allow you to play again on the weekend, but I do wonder what Friday nights would look like too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly in the summertime, you're not competing against much other than baseball, right? So
absolutely. More on the Whitecaps later in the program. Let's start with our Whistler Golf Club poll question. Quite simply here, favorite NHL coach? Rod Brindamore from Campbell River, John Cooper from Prince George, Paul Maurice, not a British Columbian, or other. And if you are voting other, specify in reply. You can vote at Sick Harrison Price at the Sick Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. We're asking this question because of the moment between Maurice and Brindamore last night at the conclusion of the Eastern Conference Final, and then the explanation from Paul Maurice after the fact as to what went on there, what was said during that conversation. And I got to say, I thought it was a terrific moment for both gentlemen, because I think it was an example of two guys of integrity who got together and sensibly hashed something out as per one's suggestion. If you missed this, at first, people wondered whether there were some angry or testy words exchanged. Brindamore did not look in the best mood. And granted, his team just lost the Eastern Conference Final again. But no, it wasn't what it appeared without the audio. And there was a tremendous explanation from Paul Maurice, which we're going to run here in a second. But we noted this last series Maurice doesn't believe that coaches belong in the handshake line at the end of series. And he thinks it should be reserved for players. And he went to Craig Berube of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he hashed that out prior to their Game 7. And he turned around and did the same thing with Rod Brindamore in the Eastern Conference Final. So let's play the clip here and then come back and discuss. Here's Paul Maurice, head coach, Florida Panthers.
Two quick ones. It seemed like you and Rod had an animated discussion at the end of the game. Was that just about the handshake line?
Yeah, that's all it was.
Okay.
And it's a personal belief, and I really appreciate what he did because I understand the risk, that there's a bit of a risk. So the story goes like this. I don't believe that the coaches should shake players' hands at the end. There's this long list of people in suits and tracksuits. I mean, we had like 400 people on the ice. They're all really important to our group, but not one of them was in the game. There's something for me visually with the camera on of just the men who played, who blocked shots, who fought for each other. It's the end of one season. It's excitement for the other. The last thing that a player on the Carolina Hurricanes deserves is 50 more guys in suits they have. They have no idea who they are, and that's not a negative. There should be something really kind of beautiful about just the camera on those men who played shaking hands, and we should respect that. So we talked to Craig Berube on the ice in Toronto, and I figured if I could sell it in Toronto, and he understood it because he's played, and Roddy's played, so they both kind of get it. I don't know where it changed. When I first got in the league, you would never go shake the players' hands. Some coach wanted to get on camera. Is the only thing I can figure out, right? And it was I don't know, maybe you want to shake Wayne Gretzky's hand or something. I don't know when it changed, but I don't think it's right. I think there's a really nice, kind of beautiful part of our game when just the players shake hands at the end. When you think of all the wars, that's not the right word, all the great competitions on the ice, I mean, hard, going after each other, and yet they shake hands like that. That's special. I mean, they're not sending Christmas cards to each other. This was nasty out there. Something very special to it. So I appreciate the risk that he took because he's concerned that somebody here is going to be upset that he didn't shake our players' hands. I asked him not to, and he said, and he understood it. So that's what happened.
And then
I'd thought 0 minutes about this previously, but hearing the explanation and realizing the history, as he put it didn't used to be this way, that the coaches were in the lineup. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah,
I like the distinction, and I think the coaches shake each other's. You know,
for sure. Yeah, that's sporting, right? Like this is all in the spirit of sportsmanship. It is one of the great traditions in the National Hockey League and the Stanley Cup playoffs. It is, in fact, so sacrosanct tradition and such a departure, as Paul outlined, in terms of what goes on the ice in this series.
And every other sport is so jealous of it.
So jealous of it.
Yeah.
Immense respect to hockey and hockey players and hockey culture, and that's not something you hear a lot, right?
No.
But this is something that hockey has and hockey has done that is respected far and wide and really puts a period on a series in the vein of sportsmanship and respect and guys laying down arms. And I'm like you. I had not thought about it until I heard Maurice, until I heard somebody mention that Maurice doesn't like to shake players' hands and doesn't believe coaches belong in that lineup in the previous series. Mm-hmm. And then to hear him explain it there, and then to hear him go through the process of explaining it to other NHL head coaches, and then to hear Brindamore's concern about, okay, but, is someone going to think me unsporting if I don't do that? Look, again, this is two men of integrity and respect who hash things out amongst themselves like sensible adults. And we need more of that.
I was just going to say
in the NHL.
And these are emotional moments and emotional times. And guess what? Two adults talked about it and made it work. How about that in today's society?
Please, more of that. More of that.
And not one side needed to be right more right than the other.
That's right.
You know,
That's
like
right.
it was just
It wasn't competitive
No.
for Rod. It was like, no, he wants to do that because you see all these silly little stupid games in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Like, oh, I'm going to be the last one to leave the ice. Oh, I'm going to turn the net around so you guys can't shoot a puck down now. Like, just utter like child-like behavior. And this was two adults getting together and going, okay, that's your perspective. Okay, that's my, you know what? Okay, I see value, merit in your perspective. I'm going to go along. So I got to say, I had a ton of respect for Paul Maurice and Rod Brindamore prior to hearing that story and seeing that scene last night, and my respect for them has only grown.
And
well done to both.
It's a risk for Maurice too, because there's a small sliver of a chance that people view it as, oh, you're trying to make a story where there isn't, and it's really a genuine, earnest answer there from Maurice, where you can hear it. He's actually doing the opposite. He's saying, like, we don't belong in that conversation. That's for them. We'll do a little tiny conversation over here amongst our colleagues.
Coaches coach, players play.
Yeah, I love it.
He draws the distinction, and even to the handshake line. So that's why we're asking our poll question as we are. And as much as I love Maurice and Brindamore, I voted for the lawyer from Prince George, Coach Cooper, for a number of reasons. One, got to know him a little bit. Two, and it's not like Brindamore and Maurice aren't exceptional communicators, but I think John is a cut above. And also because he's delivered one trophy already for Canada, and I suspect will deliver many, many more.
The other thing I like about Cooper is despite all of his success, I still don't see many airs about him. I saw him at the Worlds a week and a half ago. He was there for the final game of the round robin, probably stayed beyond when I did. And watching him meander through the crowd and just deal with people, again, there was no, and you know, like some coaches like to walk around, and I'm looking at you, Babs, the scowl on the face all the time because it's serious business what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
And there's just none of that with Cooper.
No,
so I do appreciate
honestly,
that.
and I love Cooper's story, and I think he has arrived at the point where there may be bad losses, but there are no bad days in the NHL. I just think he carries himself with a gratitude for being in the position he's in. And if you don't know the John Cooper story, he's a public defender in Michigan. And he's working before a judge whose son plays hockey. And the judge liked the way that Cooper conducted himself in court. He's always thought he was a pretty prepared lawyer and like a public defender in Michigan. Like, think of the files that is coming through your desk, the number of them. And the judge pulled him aside one day and just said, "Hey, you're from Canada. I know you've been involved in hockey in the past. Would you be interested in coaching my kid's team or helping out with my kid's team?" And from there, an NHL head coaching career was launched that has already produced 2 Stanley Cups, a 4 Nations trophy, and God knows how many other awards and accolades as John goes through his coaching career, his second career.
And we should make, again, a point here. These are not the only 3 good coaches in the AHL or the NHL front. In our ours, I think there's a long list of really good communicators and good hockey coaches, X's and O's wise. These are probably the 3 that are most notably at the top of people's voting lists, I would guess. But
well, I think you've got the most consistent guy there in terms of getting his team to the playoffs and advancing in the playoffs in Brindamore. Remember, he set the record this year for a number of times.
Yeah.
Through to the second round from the start of a coaching career, and then you have the last 3 Stanley Cup champions there, and heck, Maurice may add a second one.
Yeah, I think Cooper's just inarguable at this point.
Do you think he's inarguable? Okay.
But the other 2 are right there, and there's a lot of other good ones. So I'll go Cooper as well.
Sure hope Cooper comes back to British Columbia this summer and
maybe
enjoys the splendor of our fine province, including the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, which is open for 2025. The Bears are everywhere. Big bear activity right now at Whistler Golf Club. Tee times can be booked at any point for the 2025 season right now online. Lock them in. If you have a group of 12 or more, inquire about the Sekeres Price midweek specials, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They'll take good care of you up there. WhistlerGolf.com/groups and follow on social at Whistler Golf. Our top story today brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. The Abbotsford Canucks and Game 1 tonight of their AHL Western Conference Final against Texas at Abbotsford Center. 8 wins away from lifting the Calder Cup symbolic of the American Hockey League champions. The Baby Canucks have home ice advantage in this series. If you're not familiar, they have Game 1 tonight. They have Game 2 Saturday at Abbotsford Center. And they would get Game 6 and Game 7, if necessary, next Sunday, Monday. They do a 2-3-2 split in the best of 7, because previous to this we had been best of 5, in the best of 7 Western Conference Final.
It's a chance to add a little zest to the hockey fans in this area, and a chance to give people, I think, a little bit of optimism about the future of the Canucks organization. Like, if they're able to pull this off, and again, 8 wins is a long way, but they're close, down to Final 4. That makes it sound a lot closer than 8 wins, doesn't it? But you immediately have to give some credit to the organization for having a future. At various times, it's been the journeymen and AHLers who have carried the baton, but at various times, it's been the kids and the prospects that have risen to the occasion. I don't think it's been explicitly one or the other throughout the course of the season for the Abbotsford Canucks. So as much as what they were rated 18th of 32 teams in terms of prospect cupboards not too long ago, I think there's a chance they can outkick the coverage here a little bit. By having guys like these deep round picks become legitimate National Hockey League prospects like Kudryavtsev and others. So it's already a good story. It's got the potential to be a really great story if they can continue this run.
Can I ask you this question? Is it the single biggest positive from Canucks Sports and Entertainment season 24-25?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because Hughes was sublime.
The season of Hughes would
sublime
be,
again this year,
yeah.
but he wasn't at last year's
and he was
level.
injured too, which took some luster
Most
off.
other players underachieved. Let's face it.
Yeah, Pius Suter's career high doesn't register the same.
Does Kiefer Sherwood's hits record?
Nope. It's eccentricity, really, more than anything else. Yeah, I mean,
Kevin Lankin, I mean, you tell me, there were scant few positives. You had the head coach basically say they ain't it, and choose to go elsewhere.
Here's the other thing, is that any of those positives that we saw during the season, they all went for naught. It didn't lead anywhere, and those get nipped in the bud. Those all get shut down because everybody begins anew next season. Like I guess Lankin's performance combined with his contract gives you some longevity to that storyline. But, Suter had a career high, but he's a UFA. So, yeah, I
mean, it's a short list.
Yeah.
It's, DPD's emergence.
I'll reserve judgment for this series. I think it's really debatable right now, but if they win this series and get to the Calder Cup Final.
Unequivocal.
Yeah, I think it becomes pretty hard to deny.
Should have been our poll question, too.
Well, we've got the chance.
We'll hear from Manny Malhotra here, head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks, because starts have been a bit of an issue for them. They have had some games where they just haven't come out on the front foot, but they have the home crowd tonight, and Manny was talking about feeding off that home crowd.
I wouldn't say a feeling out process. I think the mindset, and they're probably going to be saying the same thing, is they want to establish their game and do what they do best, and we're no different. We're going to look to obviously take advantage of being back at home now, where the crowd has been outstanding and given us a lot of energy and really push the guys in the home games we've had here. They really built off of the energy that the crowd has given. But yeah, just establishing the things that we do really well and asserting ourselves in the game.
Well, one of the things they do really well is kill penalties. In fact, they are killing penalties at a 97% clip.
There is no such
the
thing
postseason.
as a power play for the opposition.
Really. And actually, maybe that belongs on our list. The Canucks finishing third in PK percentage during the NHL regular season. I know the pickings are slim, but when you remember how terrible their penalty kill was, Canucks finished
But again,
third, 82
all
points.
for naught because the penalty kill is going to change for next year.
Right. So killing penalties, obviously Artur Sheloves has had some tremendous games in this postseason run. He's got 4 shutouts. And as we have talked about, different prospects have taken different turns in terms of fueling some of the scoring for the Abbotsford Canucks. And we do anticipate that Aatu Ratu is going to play here at some point. He's been missing for several weeks here with injury that they won't detail. And so getting him back on track because he had a nice season, both in his NHL cameos and down on the farm. As JPAT notes, 6 of the top 8 AHL playoff scorers are squaring off in this series. And if you're not familiar, you should be. JPAT and Dave Hall of Canucks Army have been hosting rink-wide Vancouver following these games. They will do so again this evening, win or lose. Game 1, Abbotsford and Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to be intrigued to see when Ratu can jump in there. I'm guessing game 2. But I'm also looking forward to seeing who else rises to the occasion.
He skated in the non-playing group yesterday, so it might be a little much, but who knows?
Manny said everyone that was on the ice is available.
Yes, so who knows? And needless to say, the crowds have gotten better there. We began this postseason run going, okay, look, it's kind of a coolish reception right now. And of course,
I saw a Ticketmaster map yesterday that didn't look terribly bought up. So I hope that people. It's a Thursday. If it's a Friday game, it'd be better.
Yeah,
but
Saturday, I suspect they'll sell it out, but we'll see. But yes, the community has switched on to the team, and rightfully so, with the way they have played. What's up with Yellow Dog and Neighborhood these days?
Well, they've got a bunch of different mix packs, of course, we've been telling you about, but there's also one that can support your furry friends, the Rescue Locker. Yellow Dog's got that one, a large format 15-pack. So first time they've ever done that. It's the Rescue Locker, and every sip of this refreshing brew contributes to Yellow Dog's passionate partnership with the BCSPCA. So together, you can help give every animal a chance that they deserve. Cheers to Rescue Locker.
More on Minnesota Wild centerman Marco Rossi, and this is coming out of Philadelphia, where reporter Anthony DeMarco writes, I don't think there is a fit with Philadelphia at this time. You'll remember RG Media reported yesterday the Flyers amongst a number of suitors interested in the Wild restricted free agent. DeMarco writes, speaking with sources, the Minnesota Wild would want Tyson Foerster or one of Philadelphia's late first. Philadelphia has no interest in either. Rossi's contract demands are said to be too much for either team. And then David Piniota, the fourth period, adds further in Anthony's reporting here. I'm hearing Rossi's camp is looking for a similar deal to Boldy. All indications are he's asking for something in the 7x7 range. But just getting back to DeMarco, Foerster or a late first?
And Foerster just re-signed today for 2 years, $3.75 million.
And as a one-time first-round pick and a good player, don't get me wrong, but boy, I would have thought that the price tag for a young 23-year-old second-line center coming off a 60-point season would be larger than Foerster or a late first.
I can't help but think, Matt, that this is some sort of drumming up of interest. Like this. I mean, hey, Marco Rossi, imperfect player, but this is a skilled, still very young player that has already put up a lot of points at the NHL level. I would think a late first round pick is very fair for Marco Rossi.
Oh, I mean, I think if you're Minnesota, you're trading Rossi for a late first round pick. You are. I mean, that's taking like dimes or quarters on the dollar.
Yeah, very surprised. So,
like, especially in this draft.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking yesterday about some of the Canucks' top prospects and the 15th overall, and I understand some Canucks fans think that's too rich. Fair enough. We tend to overvalue our own players, and that's fine. We know more about them than what we know about other players, but I mean, and I realize he's about to make some money here, but, like, what would this guy go for in a trade deadline environment? Much more than a late first round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, a club-controlled player like this? You got to be kidding me. So we'll see where it goes. Look, we've talked about it here a little bit, and with each passing day, news trickles or drips in around the National Hockey League that only makes this more acute, and that is the competition for top two centers this summer. Take the Winnipeg Jets, who announced yesterday their captain, Adam Lowry, is out 5 to 6 months after hip surgery. So he is going to miss a portion of next regular season. Winnipeg was already looking for a second-line center. In fact, Winnipeg was looking for a second-line center at the trade deadline. Didn't quite get their guy. So you have to think Kevin Cheveldayoff and his staff are going to be super aggressive, having lost out in the second round of the playoffs, in terms of getting that what they feel missing piece, and especially in an environment where they're going to be missing Lowry, their second or third line center, depending on how you want to slice it up.
Yeah, different player, obviously. But
yeah, I mean, he's a heavy checker, physical player, more so than a scorer. But and in fact, there's talk about Winnipegger Jonathan Taves on the comeback trail signing with the Jets. So put Winnipeg on the long list of teams that are looking for top two centers. So, as much as I see this DeMarco report and go, that's interesting, maybe an opportunity to get a guy at lesser cost than you would think, I'm somewhat skeptical. I think demand exceeds supply here.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why our prices on the poll question yesterday were what they were, anticipating that it's going to take, and you'd think with the first, second, and third around the compensation for an offer sheet, you kind of go from there to avoid that fate. What is going to be good enough for Bill Guerin to say, well, that's a hell of a lot better than what, that's more useful to us, not better necessarily, but more useful to us. You got to think in those terms. What is Bill Guerin going to think is a lot more useful than compensation that he might otherwise see from an offer sheet from somebody? So we'll see, but I mean, it certainly sounds like it's relatively imminent. I don't mean in hours, but I mean, certainly measured in a week to 2 weeks, I would think, before we see Marco Rossi trade. I think this is done by the draft for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's done on the draft floor.
There's a lot of steam right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of steam, and also, you wonder if the draft floor serves as a pressure point. And I know some think it's a pressure point for Guerin, but I also wonder if Guerin is sly enough to look at it and say, it's a pressure point for other teams too, because they miss out on Rossi. Then the next thing you know, they're starting to prep big offers for guys in free agency, and there's not a lot of them, and there's not a lot of guys on the trade market. So, yeah, I would think over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, the Florida Panthers are through to the Stanley Cup Final for a third successive year, having split the two previous. And, of course, they are one Oilers win away from a rematch of last year's final. This is now 6 straight years where the Eastern Conference champion has come from the state of Florida, because the Tampa Bay Lightning won the 3 previous to this Panthers run. We had talked about it a week or so ago when the Western Conference Final was set. Dallas is through to its 3rd straight Western Conference Final and has been to 4 of the last 6. What is the tie that binds between the Panthers, Stars, and Lightning? They exist in the income tax-free jurisdictions of Florida and Texas.
The Vegas Golden Knights have had some success recently.
The Vegas Golden Knights, 3 of the last 7 Western Conference Finals, also a tax-free jurisdiction. Tennessee, a tax-free jurisdiction. The Nashville Predators made it in 2017. We still await the Seattle Kraken's first appearance in the NHL Final Four, although that is, of course, a recent expansion team that got a far lesser hand in the expansion draft than Vegas did.
It's a weaker tie that binds for the Preds, as they don't ever come close to spending to the cap. So,
Yeah, it's a consortium of owners there in Nashville that they're not quite healed like some of the other ownership group.
But part of that is, of course, that you can spend less on players because they get more out of the deal. So they're willing to accept less.
The question has come up, and I tweeted it last night. It's time for a collective bargaining agreement that addresses these disparities in jurisdictional income tax. And I have a lot of people shouting at me, and that's okay. Big boy, I can take it, including some NHL media members who, wouldn't want to go against Gary and Bill. Get a terse email. But I think there is enough evidence at hand here, and with the looming CBA that has to be completed before the end of next season, or ideally is completed before the end of next season, so that we have an agreement that governs season 26-27 and beyond, because we've certainly gone down that road too many times under this commissioner. I think there is an opportunity to fix this here, and I think it is something that should be addressed. The National Hockey League sat out an entire season, became the only league to voluntarily cancel its playoffs and final in a non-wartime or pandemic environment to achieve what Gary at the time argued was a level economic playing field. And if you're not old enough to remember, going back to 2004 and 2005, Gary and the owners argued to us that it was getting too competitively unbalanced because you had franchises like the Rangers and the Leafs spending huge money, and you had lesser heeled franchises, Sabres, Senators, Alberta teams, there's some others, who just weren't able to keep up financially. And so that was the inception of a hard salary cap. Okay. Fair enough. What's transpired here, and particularly recently, is that these teams in tax-free jurisdictions are able to tell free agents, well, $8.5 million here is equivalent to $10.5 million or 11, whatever the case is, in a jurisdiction that does tax income. And with Dallas in 3 straight Western Finals, 4 or 6, with Florida owning the Eastern Conference for the last 6 years, with Vegas in 3 of the last, I think you have enough evidence here that the 26 franchises that do exist in jurisdictions that tax income should bind together here and make the case of, look, this is a competitive advantage that should be addressed in the new CBA.
I think that there is a advantage. I don't think there's any denying that.
There's no question there's an advantage when you're able to tell a player your take-home pay at less money here is greater than it would be in another market.
So why did that team struggle for 20 years?
Well, it's an fact. It is a factor. It is not the sole factor. Vinny Viola at one point was a horrible owner for the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
He hired Bill Zito. It's a very well-run organization now. Very well run.
Yeah. And so the question is, if it is only a factor, not a guaranteed advantage, then I don't know that you're going to get unanimity from anybody to create change here.
But the intended purpose of the salary cap was to level the playing field economically.
Yeah. But
these tax-free jurisdictions fundamentally fly in the face of that.
The other sports don't seem to have the issue.
In some cases with the other sports, you were talking about so much money where
it's all
the
relative.
difference isn't as pronounced.
The biggest thing you'll see with rich people, guess what? They just want more. So
no, I hear you, but
it's all relative.
In the NFL, guys are signing contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm,
So, a few million in tax is, to play.
It's all percentage, though. It's still relative. Mm-hmm. It's
and of course, the other sports don't have this phenomenon of teams in the income tax free jurisdictions having disproportional success.
The truth of the matter is every market is different, period.
That's correct.
Like Minneapolis cannot compete lifestyle-wise with
Correct.
South Florida and Los Angeles.
But there's nothing the NHL can do about that.
Right.
The NHL can do something about this and should do something about this.
They can do
The
it.
evidence is at hand.
They can do it. It will potentially be a divisive issue that shuts down the league and all that sort. Like, is it worth it?
Can it? You've only got 6 of these franchises.
I don't know. The truth is, I don't think anybody knows just yet how divisive it would be and if it'd be a hill to die on.
But Blake, think of how forcefully the NHL went at the backdiving contracts that Roberto Luongo and Marian Hossa and scores of other players.
The inconsistency is abound.
They felt that was such an affront and such a loophole to the salary cap that they punished teams, the Vancouver Canucks, retroactively, and I would argue vindictively. They were legal contracts at the time they were signed. The National Hockey League has central registry that could have said, no, this contract doesn't pass muster. It violates the salary cap. Go back and bring us something that is legal and passable.
What about the Canadian
They
dollar?
chose not to do that.
What about the Canadian dollar?
Well, the Canadian, first of all, the Canadian dollar at one point, and we're in that point again with fluctuations. But again, they don't have any control over the Canadian dollar, Blake.
No, but it
But
rises
there was
and falls.
but there was equalization payments based on the fluctuations of the Canadian
At one
dollar.
point, I don't think
The
there are
NHL
anymore.
has instructed teams for a long, long time, Canadian teams, hey, hedge. Make sure you're buying U.S. dollars at the lowest possible rate you can for the rainy days.
Yeah.
You're going to need that. They're not they don't control currency fluctuations. But getting back to the backdiving contracts, so they went after that because they believed it a violation of the spirit, if not the letter of the law, of the CBA and the salary cap.
Well, yeah, that's because that
This is also a violation of the spirit of the salary cap.
but nobody's orchestrating anything. That's again, they are not in control of government policy in those states. So they're trying to punish something in control of the teams. This is not in
but they
control of the
are
teams.
in control of the salary cap in this new CBA. And look, I understand this isn't something that's easy to address.
It's a nightmare for fan relations.
Well, I wouldn't say nightmare in the least. No, I wouldn't say that. In fact, I wouldn't come close to saying that.
So-and-so's got a $110 million salary cap, but we got $98 million salary cap? Why
because
is that?
players in your state don't pay income tax. And so their money goes further.
Yeah.
That's simple.
I think for the you're always appealing to the casual, not the diehards, right? And the casuals would be like, what is going on here?
Well, I mean, so do the casuals even know the salary cap numbers?
I mean, the casuals will wonder why so-and-so can sign a team and why so-and-so cannot sign a player because...
No, there's nothing preventing them from signing players. It's just you have less money to spend because your players take home more money, and this is an equalization mechanism across the league to maintain that level economic playing field that we fought so hard for and believe is so sacrosanct, given the way we went at and retroactively punished franchises that did the backdiving contracts.
But the salary
It
cap
would
has
be
existed for 20 years.
consistency.
The salary cap has existed for 20
Consistency.
years. Why are we only seeing it now? Why are we only seeing this disparity?
Well, because teams get smarter and because the margins get thinner.
Well, exactly. Teams get smarter. They can find their way around this if need be.
Well, what do you mean?
Around the perceived disparity between the non-tax states and the tax states.
But you've got 26 franchises that can't offer this.
But they can offer other things that these guys cannot. You could argue,
but it's not take home pay. Like it's not.
Well, in some cases, yeah,
it's not financial.
Your visibility in Sunrise, Florida, as a Panther is a lot different than your visibility as a Toronto Maple Leaf or a Vancouver Canuck. You're going to get
but you don't control third party endorsement deals.
No, but there's a clear line of visibility to endorsement deals.
Anyways, I would sure hope that the 26 franchises where players do have to pay income tax would bind together and bring this to Gary in this next CBA. I have my doubts and skepticism because Gary rules with an iron fist. And let's face it, Gary's personal legacy is for teams in the Sun Belt to do well. That's what he controlled in the NHL.
To me, that's what
he
we're
is
seeing.
the father of a lot of these franchises, including Vegas for sure.
To me, this is what we're seeing.
Florida
is at the first sign of success or promise. Executives and players alike are gravitating to the Sun Belt because they can be multimillionaires in anonymity, and
In
they
warm
get
climates
and they get to
and
go
not
to
pay.
work in flip flops.
Yeah, and not pay income tax. Remember, it was the Detroits and the Chicagos that started signing the backdiving contracts when they were really good teams, and everybody screamed bloody murder and said, no, competitive imbalance, competitive, not fair. And they went ahead and addressed it. Same thing. What's going on? Different issue. Same end. Anyways, Cup Final. We have a schedule now. Or we have a start date. We talked about this yesterday. So we were wondering, if Western Conference Final ends tonight, are you going to go dark through the full weekend? Is there not ground to be made up on the weekend or early next week by getting your championship final started, NHL?
And we said, hell
Knowing
yeah.
the NBA final doesn't start till a week from today.
And we said, hell yeah, it makes sense. That's why the NHL won't do it.
So how come that doesn't apply to state income tax, Blake? So the Cup Final is to begin Wednesday, June 4th, everybody.
Before the NBA
So
finals, at least.
we could be done tonight, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you'll have 5 nights without NHL playoff, Stanley Cup playoff hockey until we get.
They like to give the
Stanley
teams a
Cup
chance
final.
to take a breath.
Yep.
They like to give the event a chance to build up the infrastructure around it. For those that don't know, there's all the different trailers for the different departments that they need to get set up. They need set up at both markets.
Yep.
Media day, all that stuff. So I get it from that standpoint. It is your tentpole sort of moment there. You need to bring everybody in, and if you rush it, maybe you lose a few people.
Yeah, I get it too. I'm not quite sure they needed 5 days.
No, it's just, do you start something on a Monday or a Tuesday is the other problem, right? I get it.
So Wednesday's the earliest, everybody. If the Western Conference Final keeps keeping on, like if it goes 7 games, and not looking great right now for Dallas, but it's feasible, right? It's conceivable. Saturday, June 7th, everybody. So that'd be 2 days after the NBA.
What
Finals
if it just goes 6? Are they given that
I'm
parameter?
not entirely sure.
Because if it ends on Saturday, come on, we can still do Wednesday.
I would think so. I would hope so.
A travel
We're
day,
gonna,
a
because
practice
the alternative
day,
is a full
media
week,
day.
Blake. The alternative is a full week.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. And then you allow the NBA finals to grab first blood, if you will, first attention.
That's it. So that's where we're at. And again, staring down the barrel of a rematch with one more Oilers victory. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by our friends at Greta. A fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away, and an unbelievable spot to host your next party or event. If you need a venue, team building, birthday party, whatever the case may be, check out Greta. They have the arcade that encircles the bar, games for just about everyone. They have fantastic street food, decadent poutine. And for more info, go to gretabar.com, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We're going to talk to Patrick Johnston of The Province and Post Media here on a bunch of Vancouver Canucks topics, including he's working on a piece about AHL success and what that means to the NHL club. And there's actually a really good finding there for the Vancouver Canucks. your AHL team goes on a long playoff run, that typically means something for the big club. Not immediately, but Patrick will spell that out. And then Ranko Veselinovic, Whitecaps FC center back. He has been here for a long time. 6 years, coming on 150 matches. Wears the captain's armband. And as we know, this is the biggest week in the Whitecaps MLS history with this CONCACAF Champions Cup final set for Sunday at Cruz Azul in Mexico City. So and Ranko is all smiles.
He's a great guy.
You were telling me he's a pretty happy-go-lucky guy to begin with. And as Ryan Gauld outlined this week, you show up at the training facility. The mood is pretty good these days with the Whitecaps after a run of 15 straight games without a loss.
And after a game where they spent 90 minutes in the opposition half.
Yes.
He was...
they weren't sweating many things last night.
May not have showered after the match.
So all that's coming up on this edition of Secure Some Price. Okay, Bet365, bets of the day. And I mean, some of us won with Florida -1.5 yesterday.
Yeah, did you? Do I get credit? Give me half. Give me half. I demand it.
It's true. I do have to credit him for urging me to lay the 1.5 as opposed to just the straight-up win. We talked about this yesterday. Burnaby's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins having him a monster series against Dallas. And then there's the other Vancouverite, Evander Kane, who's now more important to the Oilers' fortunes with Zach Hyman out. Nuge is plus 280 as an anytime goal scorer. Kane is plus 375. Give me both guys tonight.
I'll say I wish the number was a little bit higher, but it's good enough that I'm intrigued. Victoria Mboko tomorrow against Qinwen Zhang. Needless to say, the qualifier is a big underdog. I think it could have been a bigger number, but at plus 400, you have my attention, Bet365. I will go with the Canadian teenager to keep the run going.
Yeah, would be into the fourth round
at
the French Open. If you want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365, they got you. Game props, player props, totals, money line. You can bet futures like series winners, conference champions, Stanley Cup champions, Conn Smythe winners. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older.
Green in the chat. Blake can have his half, but it'll be taxed.
That's right. At the BC level.
Yeah,
no less.
No, God, no.
Secure Some Price from the Historic Wall Center.
I was just telling Matt how picky he is. He's very fastidious, very particular, which means you have to understand that when he sat in the BZ4X from Toyota, his overwhelming impression, positive impression of that, says a lot about the vehicle. It fit him. It was stylish. It performed well. When I pressed the gas pedal, he was like, ooh.
There's awesome bells and whistles in it, too.
So,
like, you can run the car with your phone.
That's why, not steer the car.
No, it can't steer the car. Yeah.
No, that's years away. It's why they tell you to go and take it for a test drive, because the wow factor when you sit down there and take it for a test drive will make you fall in love. And right now, why shouldn't you? $5,000 in incentives on the LE all-wheel drive edition. You can get 0.99% APR financing for 36 months. Shop Toyota.ca. You'll fall in love too.
Patrick Johnston of the Province and Post Media covers the Vancouver Canucks. He joins us now. How are you?
I am good. I recovered from that Whitecaps game.
You were there too. Yeah.
Not an entertaining affair, but
No.
the beer was cold. So
There you go. You did your best to.
I wish I knew you were. I would have come down and visited with you.
where were you?
Was that a family outing or was that a buddy's trip?
No, just me and a bud.
Okay. We've been talking about Marco Rossi here, the Minnesota Wild centerman, and now there are reports that he is going to be available and that Bill Guerin might be motivated to make this deal sooner rather than later so that he doesn't go out and spend money and then suddenly, RFA Marco Rossi is offer sheeted like the Oilers found out last year. What do you think? What do you think the interest is here? How much do you think he would help the Canucks, and what do you think of the cost of acquisition?
I mean, I absolutely think it would help the Canucks. Yeah, I mean, I was talking to someone about this the other day, someone who has some insight, and they don't think he'll sign a bridge. And, look, he got played on the fourth line. I don't think he's very happy there. But then again, what incentive do teams have to trade for him when they can just sign him on July 1st and give up a draft pick or two?
Well, he's an RFA.
Yeah, I know, but signing an offer sheet, and I don't think the player's terribly happy there. I mean, listen, if Bill Guerin has accepted the fact that the player is unhappy and is ready to trade him, it's because he knows he's not going to be able to sign him. So would he even want a match, or would he just turn around? The incentive on Guerin obviously is to get players that will help him play right now versus a draft pick that will, he could flip for another player, I suppose. But
Correct. And if he does get this contract he's looking for in the $7 million range, it's first, second, and third round picks. You'd have to give up on the offer sheet.
Yeah. Listen, he's a player that he should help the Canucks. The Canucks are struggling for depth at center. He plays an energetic, skillful game, which they need lots of. I think he'd be a great addition to this team.
There's concerns about size.
Sure.
But you can't get it all, can you? And to me, finding big wingers to complement him is a lot easier than finding the big skilled center, because guess what? There's not any of those.
No, exactly. This is the situation they're in. The moment you moved on from JT Miller, this was going to be a concern. And I would say if you are going to have to sign a smaller center, Marco Rossi is perfectly fine.
Speaking of free agents, do you think the Canucks are going to have a lot of trouble attracting free agents, A, because of the season they just went through, but B, also because everybody's got cap space and is going to be so aggressive in pursuing the limited number of free agents that hit the market on July 1st?
Well, I asked a bunch of agents a while ago. I said, listen, what's the scene here? Like, what do people actually think? And they're like, it's not good. And I talked to managers, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Florida tax thing. I mean, I think if you want to understand the real story here, it's about how sort of disciplined and coherent and well organized, what's the reputation of your organization? And, for all the good reputation Jim Rutherford does bring, Rick Tocchet did bring, not there anymore. You've got an unknown coach. You've got a team that's coming off a terrible season where there was real turmoil in the dressing room. You have a star player that has a huge question marks around him. Like, it's not a very good scene. Jim Rutherford is not wrong when he says it's difficult. It's probably going to be difficult to recruit free agents here. I think people have been really sleeping on what he did say that. Like, he's acknowledged that. They know that they're up against it, and that's partly why they think they're going to have to solve a lot of their problems through trades. I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously they need to get a winger. They need a couple wingers. Like, if they don't presumably let Brock Besser go, they got to find someone to replace him. And then they're going to have to, realistically need to find someone else. I mean, we're talking about 3 forwards, right? Like, you're talking about a center, you're talking about a couple wingers. You're going to have to
I'm surprised
make some changes elsewhere to make that all happen.
I'm surprised at how meekly the Brock Besser story has just disappeared. Yeah. Not that I necessarily...
All the UFA stories. Suter and Forbert as well.
Yeah, like, why aren't you kicking tires on Suter at the very least? Right? Like, and maybe they are, and it's just so damn under cloak and dagger that we're not hearing about it. But, I'm surprised there's not even a lot of lip service about Brock Besser's departure, which you would expect to at least go through the exercise for the sake of PR with a guy like Brock Besser.
Yeah. I'm here. It's pretty quiet. Like, it's scouting meetings, obviously, going on. Lots of that right now, but the focus is on the draft. And I know John Shannon's talking about they're going to trade there first. So, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. That was something I thought a long time ago for different reasons, because I thought they were going to end up pushing their chips in this year. Now it's trying to find a player that's going to make your team better.
Make your team respectable.
Or respectable, yes, thank you. Yeah, it's a very strange situation, but yeah, very quiet, because you're right. Like, the Besser story remains the same. His camp, I think they expect there may be yet one more offer, but I'm not sure they're going to take it.
Yeah.
Well, because the Canucks are up against it. Like, I wrote about this a month ago, I think. Like, they need guys, and they have a guy. Like, this is the thing with the Besser thing. Like, in the end, they need guys that can score goals. Like, Besser may not be a perfect player, but he scores. He even when he's hurt, he gets you 25 goals, and when he is playing, he's scoring a 30-goal pace. Like, that's pretty good. Same career points rate as Nikolai Ehlers. Like, you know, like he's a competent quality winger, and it's probably not going to carry on here. Suter's a good one. I was talking Anthony Mingione, who does some coverage of the Flyers, was sort of wondering. He actually was speculating aloud. And I said, you know, about the fact that Suter seems like a guy that Tocchet likes. And I said, you know what? Now that you mention it, he does. I don't have any intel on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's something Rick Tocchet's talking about with the Flyers, because there's another team that needs some centers. They have none. Like, they need to figure themselves out. I don't think he's, you know, in the end he's a useful utility player. He is literally a Swiss Army knife. We've seen how good he was. I mean, he got forced into first line minutes here and did very well. I don't think anybody thinks he's a first line centerman going forward, but he showed very well again this year what a quality NHL forward he can be. He can play center if you need him. He can play on the wing. He can play anywhere in the lineup. He literally played anywhere in the lineup for the Canucks this year. I wonder if he could play goalie. I don't think he wanted to play goalie. But, you know. Do you
think anything do you think any AAV that starts with a 4 gets Suter signed? Or do you think it needs to be bigger?
I mean, I assume it could be bigger. Like, I mean, it is a year. This is the kind of year where guys get deals like that. I don't, you know, I guess there's some noise out there. Oh, this could turn into a David Clarkson year, which, you know, if you look back to the David Clarkson year, part of why Clarkson got that huge contract was Dave Nonis was assigned by his board of directors to get the biggest perceived free agent on the market, and Clarkson was perceived as such. And also there wasn't a lot of players available. This year there is, I mean, there's a lot, you know, it's not a lot of, I mean, Mitch Marner obviously is a very sexy and exciting candidate for a free agent contract. It's not an amazing list, but it's better than what the Clarkson year. Like, there's a lot more interest, and like Pia Suter is one of those guys. He's an interesting player that will make your team better if you sign him. Will you overpay him? Probably, but I think that happens to almost everybody in these scenarios.
There's big names. There's just older names.
Like that's.
Little nugget about Pia Suter. I was in a shop yesterday. I'm friends with the people who run it, and they're like, "Yeah, Pia Suter was in here a couple of weeks ago." And I'm like,
"Oh, really?
Huh? You mean he didn't FO immediately back to Sweden right after the Canucks season was done? Maybe that's saying something. Just putting that out there."
Yeah, maybe. I think he likes it here. I do think he likes it here. I mean, that was the other thing. The Rutherford comments about, you know, Europeans. I mean, they get it. He's not wrong on that either. But the tax thing. I mean, here's your bridge into the tax thing. The Europeans get what the taxes are for. And they're like, okay, whatever.
It's true.
You know, Switzerland, not Sweden.
But then again, on that argument, just by the way, like, just JT Miller signed here. And there's a guy that you would think be like, oh, taxes, give me a break. But he wanted to be here, right? Like, do you want to talk about this now? Should we talk about this now, Matt?
Yes, I do want to talk about this now. This is 6 straight years where a team from Florida has won the Eastern Conference Final, of course.
Yeah.
This is one of several tax-free jurisdictions in the National Hockey League. Vegas is another. Dallas is another. Nashville and Seattle also fall into that camp. But are we getting to the point where that advantage, your take-home pay being greater in those in those markets than it is elsewhere because of the lack of any kind of state income tax. Is that becoming too pronounced an advantage in the NHL?
Well, I think there needs to be a little more nuance in this discussion because as a top line, I mean, certainly it comes up. There's no denying that. And as I said, though, you still get guys that say, I don't care. I want to play. Where I live matters as much as how much I'm paying in tax. Now, the argument is, of course, that they don't have to pay you as much because the take home is higher no matter where you are. Now, as someone, I was talking to a couple people about this yesterday. I've been thinking about all these things. And one person pointed out, said, listen, one of the things that doesn't enter in this conversation is stuff like property tax. And in a lot of these places, your property tax is a lot higher. So the math certainly is obviously still in favor because income tax is such a huge portion of your.
That's it. It's the biggest deduction. It's the biggest deduction.
The biggest deduction.
And to be clear, nobody is arguing that the Florida Panthers and prior to them, the Tampa Bay Lightning make cup finals and win cups because there's no state income tax. Also, nobody is arguing that it is the be-all, end-all, absolute black and white reason the only reason why players sign in these markets. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, though, these markets, these franchises, excuse me, can extract what? 10, 15, 20% more value out of the cap. They can go to free agents on July 1st and say, $8.5 million here actually goes further than $10.5 million in the other market. And that, I'm sorry, my friends, is an advantage. It violates the spirit of the cap, much like the backdiving contracts that they went at so vengefully several years ago. It, in fact, erodes the essence of the cap. The cap is supposed to create an equal economic playing field across all 32. And this jurisdictional tax issue does fly in the face of the intended purpose.
Now, I do find myself wondering if some of this is just mere coincidence. Because let's look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and let's look at the Florida Panthers, who are now very well run. Like, more than anything, these are and Vegas, right? These are three teams that are doing everything right. Like, that's the most important thing. Solid ownership, solid management, a very competent, clearly delineated coaching staff who understand what they're doing, right? Like, look at the coach at every single one of those teams. You want to talk about the best coaches in the NHL? John Cooper, Paul Maurice, Bruce Cassidy.
Yep.
Peter DeBoer, like these guys, these are the best coaches. Like, the circumstances go far beyond. I was asking, and I think they took it to mean in sort of the Canuck context. They said, I don't think taxes even make the top 10 when you're looking at the issues around, say, the Canucks. Like, it comes back to, it's the whole package. And, like, listen, Florida, the Florida being a low tax state is nothing new. Is nothing new, right? The Panthers were terrible under Dale Talon. Then they got rid of Dale Talon, finally. Right? Mm-hmm. And they went in a new direction. They got Bill Zito has clearly done a good job and brought in Sonny Meda, the data guy, right? Did all these other things, did some really smart stuff and got a really good coach. And they built, and obviously, had two outstanding players sitting in their laps for a very long time, Ekblad and Barkov. Like it's a team that was waiting to be well run. So sure, the tax thing might be it, but there's a huge broader discussion here, and I think more importantly, it's do not forget how important it is to have a team that's well run. Because look at Seattle. Seattle has a tax advantage, and they're terrible.
And they're not, but again, nobody is arguing. Both things can be true at the same time. Florida is exceptionally well run. They also have a state income tax advantage.
It's an arrow in the quiver that nobody else has.
Yeah. Well, a few others have.
I would love to hear the mayor of Oak Bay weigh in on this, actually. So.
Yeah. Well, the mayor of Oak Bay, I think, would absolutely be on the side of it is an advantage because, as you know, the mayor of Oak Bay spent most of his career managing this franchise looking for these sorts of advantage, and the Vancouver Canucks found
Well, he actually spent the most of his career as a player agent who would
Yes.
probably be advising his
No,
players.
exactly.
Hey,
Exactly.
you're going to get an extra 8% of income over here.
And Gillis would be the first to tell you players sign for myriad reasons.
Yes.
In some cases, it's the coach and how I'm going to be used. In some cases, I want to live in New York City. In other cases, it's purely financial. So it runs the full gamut. Nobody is saying that it is, a be-all, end-all factor. We are just saying it is in the cocktail of factors that players consider, and it is in the cocktail of factors of why certain teams are more successful than others. Let me just ask you this, because the CBA is up, and there is at least the potential for a fix here. I am by no means an accountant or a mathematician, but as I see it, you have, 26 franchises, I think, that have jurisdictional tax. So you get in a room with accountants and mathematicians. You work out what the average tax rate is. Accounting for currency, right? Because some of these are Canadian markets and some of these are American. You come up with a number, and then you apply it as a percentage to reduce the cap for the teams that do have no state income. So Florida, Nashville, Tampa, Dallas, Vegas, Seattle. Guess what? The cap is whatever million it is for everybody else. It's several million shy of that for you.
So what you're saying is make the salary cap system even less fan-friendly than it already is.
I have a hard time.
It's an unfortunate byproduct, Blake. I will agree with that. But it sure as hell isn't the NFL or the NBA just yet with the exemptions
or MLS.
of the bird rule or ML. Fuck yeah! Don't even get me started on Tam again. Patrick, is that doable? Do you think there's appetite?
I haven't checked with anybody at the PA, but maybe I will now, because I just have a hard time imagining the PA saying, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We're not going to let our guys make as much as they want. It's already restrictive enough as it is. I think it, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you know, Matthew. Maybe you know, Blake. I don't know. Does the NBA talk about this? Because, in the end, that's an issue in the NBA.
It hasn't been as pronounced. Yep, it hasn't been as pronounced in other leagues. No.
And the NBA has an even bigger problem. But the NBA has an even bigger problem, which is pure markets. Guys don't want, keeping Giannis in Milwaukee was a miracle, right? Guys don't want, they want to go play in LA, the Tim Duncan story. Guys want to go play in LA. Which in many ways is actually the reverse of the hockey problem, which is that Mitch Marner, probably doesn't want to stay in Toronto anymore. He probably doesn't want to come to Vancouver for the same reasons. As Steve Warrior put it to me the other day, Matthew Tkachuk can walk down South Beach with a case of beer naked, and no one will bother him.
Right. Well, so a few things there. Point taken. It has not been an issue that has been got much run in the NBA, in the NFL, in Major League Baseball. Now, granted, do we have the evidence of teams in tax-free jurisdictions being as successful in a given period of time as we have in the NHL? I don't know. I do know a number of Western Conference champions tend to come out of the state of Texas. They've got 3 teams there. We shall see. But here's the thing, when you talk about markets being an issue. So the NHL has that problem too, right? Like Vancouver, San Jose, New York, extremely desirable markets to live in. That is reflected in our real estate prices, right?
Yeah.
That is so far and beyond the NHL's control. There's no redress there. Like Vancouver, New York, San Jose are always going to be desirable places to live. Winnipeg, Detroit, Minnesota, not so much. Can't fix that. You can fix this.
You quantify how shitty a team is. The shit city quotient. It will be assessed in the CBA.
No, but that's what I'm saying is you can't fix that. There is no fixing that. You can address and redress jurisdictional tax differences. You can. If there's a will, and there are 26 teams that should be aligned on this as well. So I take your PA concern as well and say, okay, well, but if Gary's got 26 teams that are saying, no, we got to do this, I would like to think that the commissioner has to take up that mantle.
I can take a pretty good stab at the metropolises and say that Minneapolis and Winnipeg deserve to have salary caps of $300 million.
Exactly.
I think that I think that
free
is a
agents
fair
still
number.
wouldn't sign. Well, actually, hockey free agents might, because that's going home for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. You're always a good sport. Thank you, Patrick. You're writing a piece on which Abby Canucks you think are going to have the biggest impact on the Vancouver Canucks next year, or
it's more looking at there is a trend line. Your goal differential tells a lot of the story in the AHL. If you have a good year for and against, that tends to mean good things for your team, your NHL club, a couple years down the road. This has sort of been studied. There is a notable impact that the NHL club has positive results 2 years down the track. And why is that? Well, it generally has to do, it's not because most of these teams are dealing with star players. It has to do with how you're producing depth players, because in the end, your star players tend to skip the AHL and go straight to the NHL. So it's how well are you producing? So, I mean, what are we actually talking about here? You know, you're looking at the likes of Linus Karlsson, R.C. Baines, guys like that, right? Like we've seen them in the NHL. Obviously, Karlsson is on a one-way deal. He needs waivers. Like, it seems likely he's going to play a role on this team next year. Baines, we'll see how that plays out. I am most interested actually in Ato Ratu, who obviously has been hurt and has not played a ton in these playoffs. It sounds like he is either going to make a return tonight or is close to a return. And to me, he is a big story, especially when we talk about the center story off the top of the bat. Like, that this is a team that is going to need to find strength down the middle. I am not suggesting he is a top six solution, but I do think he has a role to play, especially if in creating or recreating or reassembling your roster, one of the things you do, I mean, you look at Teddy Bluger, you're like, is Teddy Bluger a guy that you could move on because you rather use that cap space for a little more value? Does Aatu Ratu provide a little bit of value in that fourth line checking role? Does he provide more value than a guy like Teddy Bluger? So, I mean, that's what we're talking about here. And that is in more than anything. I mean, obviously the run is great, and it's good to see how well Manny Malhotra's performed as a coach, and that's what I wrote about yesterday, which is this means big things for him. It is absolutely clear. No matter where this run goes, his season here has him on people's radar. And assuming he carries on and has another strong season next year, he will end up somewhere else. And will the Canucks rue that mistake? Obviously they went with Adam Foote because he's, I guess, a familiar face, and there's a less disruption to the overall organizational structure by doing that. But it does look to me like in the long run, Manny Malhotra will be the better coach.
No, I'm not firing Adam Foote just yet here.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying.
Like, Manny can make life really uncomfortable for Adam Foote before he even coaches a game.
Well, here's the thing.
And that's not, sorry, to be clear, and that's not where I'm going. I'm just saying, the long run, like, this is what this team has performed well, and Manny's done a good job coaching, and there has been good signs from the assorted players that you want to see good signs from, like guys like Karlsson and Baines and Ratu, and Kirill Kudryavtsev obviously is a good story. He's still realistically at best is a 6-7 in the NHL, but that is the kinds of wins you need to have if you are going to make successful trades elsewhere to bulk up your lineup or free agent signings or draft stars and so on and so on and so on.
Where I was going with it is that Adam Foote, it's not a gun to his head necessarily, but he's not he was not an expensive choice for head coach, no. I wouldn't assume, right? No, so, you wouldn't give Rick Tocchet a 3-year extension and fire him after this coming year at the numbers that Rick Tocchet was demanding. But if it's not a great year and there are some foibles from Adam Foote and Manny Malhotra has backed it up with another good season next year, I mean, the amount of dollars that you'd be leaving on the table with Adam Foote would still be probably less than one full year of Rick Tocchet.
And even inclusive of Manny's salary, I would think. Because I don't think he's going to.
He's not going to demand.
And a lot of people were saying this when Adam Foote, that he's a placeholder.
Maybe.
We'll see.
But the
Abbotsford Canucks are a good story. They're very clearly a good story. It is interesting when you look at things like the coaching story. Not every coach that has, like Todd Nelson, has had one cup of tea with the Oilers and has won the Calder Cup 3 times in the last 7 seasons. Like, the guy clearly can do it, and he barely gets a sniff in the NHL. That said, you look at the list of the last 10 Calder Cup winners, and it's like, it's like John Cooper, Jared Bednar, Sheldon Keefe, Like there are a lot of really top end guys that have come through here, guys that are having success in the NHL. Jeff Blashill, there are guys, and then there are guys like Willie Desjardins who obviously didn't work out all that well, but
But they got their look.
Yeah.
If you do well, even if winning, obviously the Calder Cup is a huge thing, but even doing well tends to do good things for you, and it means good things for the organization. So, potentially there is a good reason to think that a year or two from now, and we've seen some of these guys already, as I've said, that there are players who are playing key roles on the team here who will be playing important depth roles on the NHL club in a year or two from now.
Jonathan Lekramacky next year. How many goals at the NHL level?
Oh, I mean, the kid can score. Like we know he has the hands. The question becomes, does he have the size and the strength to deal night in, night out? But I mean, I'm comfortable saying 15 goals.
I was going to say 17.
Yeah, I saw enough from him to say that if you mean 15 goals, probably you would say, ooh, is that really such a good season? I don't know. I don't think that would be. You would hope for more because of given the pedigree and you drafted him in the first round and so on, but he has enough talent just with hands to score 15 goals, I think.
Okay. Thank you for this.
Always. Not as fiery maybe as past ones.
That's okay.
Why does Matt look so exhausted after talking to you? Why is he so exhausted? You look like you're spent.
Well, we ganged up on him again.
Patrick gets my brain working.
He's taking blows.
Brain hard.
And when the
tired.
two of you gang up on me,
I don't recall that happening.
I feel backed into a corner.
I don't like the bear, Matt Segaris here.
Woo! Have fun with the rest of the show, boys.
Thank you.
Wait till tomorrow. Segaris and Price from the historic Wall Center. And, of course, the Whitecaps are in the huge CONCACAF Champions Cup Final Sunday versus Cruz Azul. First time in club history the Whitecaps have made this final. Only the third time a Canadian team has ever reached this stage. And when we're done with that, they'll be back home June 8th against Cascadia rivals, the Seattle Sounders, who won a game last night.
Yeah, they're surging now, too. So something to be reckoned with in the MLS regular season. And by the way, the forecast has changed a little bit, but it still looks good for the watch party on Sunday at Terry Fox Plaza.
Terry Fox Plaza. And for more information, tickets, check out whitecapsfc.com. We are joined now by Vancouver Whitecaps defender Ranko Veselinovic. 153 matches with the Caps over 6 seasons, including last night against the Minnesota Wild or Minnesota United. Ranko, how are you?
Good, guys. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, we had a game last night, so I'm a little bit tired, but
you're not tired. You didn't have to do anything last night. Did you bother? Did you shower after the match? Like, come on. All you did was distribute a little bit. You and
mentally is always tough.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like we had a game, so yeah, today is recovery, and now all focus is on Sunday.
Unbeaten in 15 overall, unbeaten in 10 MLS matches. Ranko, where is all of this coming from? You're surprising just about everybody who follows this league. You've been so good. How have you guys gotten this done?
Well, we just started like season. Okay, we started bad. Even when we think now about that game in Costa Rica, we didn't know what's going to happen after that game. But yeah, from that point, we just went game by game, trying to be better every game, trying to find new things in our game, even when we win or when we tie, when we lose, doesn't matter. Just keep improving. And I think we get into this point this season where we just, even if we don't play our best game, we just find a ways to not lose, to win games. We saw even in Salt Lake to win matches late, and that's something like that mentality that we got now. It's really important, especially we have like the most important game of our season so far on Sunday. Is going to help us knowing that we can find ways in no matter what environment and what situation, we can find ways to win games. And I think that's like a highlight of this group so far this season. And it's been pretty good. And we go, as I said, match to match, that's important. to focus every opponent maximally, 100% thinking about them, not thinking about 5 games from now, just match by match. And so far, it's been good.
Was there a moment or a match where you realized we might be good? Like, you lose Ryan Gauld early. I would imagine that when you had a first couple of wins after Ryan was gone, that maybe you thought that. But you tell me, was there ever a moment where you're like, "Holy crap! I think we might be really good this year"?
Yeah, you're right. I think there was. I can't remember game exactly, but I think game against Colorado at home when we won 2-0, that was pretty important win for us, because before that I think we had that loss against Chicago and maybe tie against Toronto, and we were a little bit, okay, maybe we need to do something different. And then Colorado, that was in good point in that season, came to us, and it was pretty tough game. I remember thinking about, they're a good team, they press good, they play good with the ball, but we just found a way to win that game pretty comfortably. We control a lot of things, and I'm like, okay, this is how it has to be every game. And from that point, I think we just improved, and I still think we have a space to improve. For example, we saw a game against Austin where we weren't in our best, but we hang in there. We get the point, but I can still think that we can win those games if we improve in a little small areas.
Vanny used to talk about the unique defensive system that he had for you guys. When Jesper comes in and changes that, was there? I mean, your defensive statistics, both individually and as a team, are spectacular this year. There was no transition needed, but did you guys feel like you had to, at least mentally, make an adjustment from Vanny to Jesper defensively?
Well, I think it helps us that we are now a team that's together for 3 years, so we understand each other really good, and we are in a really strong shape. And then Jesper coming just gave us a little bit more confidence. We don't have to be we don't have to wait anything. We have quality, we can go press high, and he just gave us that confidence that we can go press high, win the ball high, not waiting for something to happen, not waiting to get punched, and then start going. So yeah, I think that really helped us. And then going back to 4, I think it was also important for us because we cover each other pretty well, and even and I wanna congratulate the whole team, because all 11 players working really hard, and even when the times when we are broken in our pressing from their goal kick, we work really hard just to get back, and we know that it's really hard to break us when we are set in our block, and that gives us really, really confidence, knowing going into the game that, okay, they're gonna have pretty hard time to score on us.
Yeah, and it's a league low 12 goals allowed this year in MLS play. Ranko, how much do you know about Cruz Azul, and what kind of team and what kind of game you're up against on Sunday?
Honestly, I didn't watch many of their games. I watch results a lot, especially since we know that we're going to play them. And I saw that they're an amazing team. They have, I think, 2 losses in the 20-something games, last 20-something games. So they're a pretty good team. I spoke a little bit with our video analyst, and they said that they're one of the rare, really organized Mexican teams. Mexican teams tend to go man-to-man, go have a chaotic games, but he says that they're really organized. And we're going to see now. We didn't have even so much time because we had to prepare for Minnesota and other games, but we're going to now, these 3 days, really focus on them, and we'll see what are their tendencies in the game.
Have you allowed yourself to envision what it would be like to bring that trophy home to Vancouver, Ranko?
I allowed myself. I didn't think so much about that before, let's say, last night and this morning when this game against Minnesota finished. So now I'm starting to thinking. I'm focusing on that final, and of course we're all thinking, we're imagining it in our hands, and it will be pretty nice.
Yeah, and I asked that because we've watched you grow up here in Vancouver, Ranko. It's been 6 years. You came here at the tender age of 20. You've really grown up here as a professional. and as a person,
Captain's
and
armband.
Captains wearing captain's armbands, and I imagine I've had your chance to meet supporters around the city over your time here. What's it been like playing in this market for as long as you have?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. Honestly, I didn't expect that I'm gonna be here so long. When I came, I didn't know what to expect. I came as a kid, didn't know anything about the league, about this culture, about this continent, completely different. So yeah, I'm pretty proud at the point where we are now. And I always used to say I didn't want to go from the Whitecaps not doing anything like really special in the playoffs and in MLS and that. So this season feels pretty nice, and I'm really happy that I managed to have these kind of results with this team, and it's gonna be the best possible thing for me to if we can win this trophy and then going even in MLS all the way. So I can reflect on my time here, and every season was challenge for itself, and I think every season for me was a little bit better than the previous one, and that's what I'm happy about, because I always think consistency is the key. You need to be consistent and always improving yourself.
Is there another player, a teammate of yours that you're just so happy for having this season and having this opportunity, like the one that you're getting to possibly win a trophy? Is there somebody, a brothers in arms that sort of rises to the top of your mind?
All of them,
Yeah.
I'm really happy for all of them, and we see a lot of guys getting national team call-ups, and it's pretty amazing to see that we get recognition. And I was thinking about every play, how it's gonna feel for them when they win, and I just think it's gonna be amazing feeling for this group, just to make that final step, because we know what we've been through in the last 2-3 years. As I said, as a team, a lot of ups and downs. So it would be amazing for us as a group.
Well, it's been an extraordinary run through CONCACAF and been a fantastic MLS regular season as well. We've just so enjoyed watching you guys play this year, Ranko. Thank you for this. Best of luck on Sunday. All right?
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Secure some price from the historic Wall Center, where you extend your game night with a staycation in downtown Vancouver. Book the exclusive Secure some price rate here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for us by name. Tell them we sent you. Some blackout dates apply based on availability.
You can swing by and wave at us through the glass, and of course,
many do.
Feast your eyes on the fabulous bottle of bogey juice that Matt has beside him. See, we tell you about the individual size bottles for out on the course. Got the big bottle. Mix it with some soda, pour it over ice.
And it is unopened, too. Let the record show.
It's true. Apple, ginger, top shelf vodka. It's delicious. It'll have you coming back for more, and we want to make sure you're okay doing that. So SP15 gives you 15% off your order at bogeyjuice.com. Make sure you check out the team store as well and see the fabulous golf apparel. For bogeyjuice.com.
We do this show stone sober, or at least
stoned?
Stone sober.
Or sober. What?
Stone sober.
I thought we said, okay.
Although I cannot attest for Mike. I'm not sure.
You heard the Snoop Dogg story. Didn't you?
Exactly. That Snoop Dogg story resonates.
Did you see that the Happy Cola Haribo bottles
oh my gosh.
may have cannabis in them?
I like your note.
And you want me to bring it back?
Right. You got a recall on this? You're telling me there's cannabis in it, but you want it recalled.
Yeah, scoop up
in
all the
what
bags.
World? So the Whitecaps just finished with Ranko Veselinovic there, and we didn't talk a lot about the Minnesota game because there wasn't much to talk about. I've told you this before, Blake, but for me, it is the bane of soccer that everyone goes and makes an effort to be at a place and then no goals happen. 0-0 draw. It does increase their unbeaten streak to 15 games, 10 in MLS, and they extend their lead atop the MLS West to 5 points over San Diego.
Still with the game in hand, too.
Exactly. Expansion San Diego lost down the I-5 in Seattle last night. I was talking with Alex Gange-Ruzic and Nathan Durek, both cover the Whitecaps at halftime, and they were just maligning Minnesota parking the bus.
Oh my
It made
gosh.
for one of the more dreary Caps games this season before a season low crowd of 17,000 at BC Place. Caps dress started 6 regulars, I think it's fair to say. So it was kind of like a mixed and matched starting 11, about halfay there. They held this.
It was a pretty good starting lineup, as we talked about. They were kind of forced into it because of rotation that had already happened, and Berhalter suspended them. That was a decent lineup. Like,
no, it was. And when the 3
do.
points were there for the taking, he came with Brian White. He came with his better players, and rightfully so. You play to win the game. So well done, Coach Sorensen. Like the way you handled it. Caps held a 60-40 possession advantage, 19 shot attempts to just 4, but alas, only 4 shots got on goal from both sides the entire night.
Yeah.
And the one on Takaoka was, relative child's play.
No, there was one good shot on goal. It was a slip of Brian White at the top of the box. It was looking really good. He slips, and you think, oh, the chance is done. But Nelson was right behind him, and he labeled the ball right at the keeper, right at Dane St. Clair, who made, in the end, a fairly routine save on a well-hit ball. But there was one well-hit ball towards goal the entire night.
If I'm an MLS team owner or president, or sporting director, I just don't know how you can go out and hire a coach who routinely wants to play this mind-numbing style. Like, you're trying to sell this North America is the last frontier for the world's game.
Well, here's the problem.
You want it to be as exciting, as aesthetically pleasing, give people reasons to want to come back to the park and watch on
against 80% of the
television.
league. Eric Ramsey's style, and Minnesota coach's style, works better because those teams will commit enough mistakes that the counter is there. That opens them up, which opens them up to be attacked a little bit, but they will run and use guys like Taniela Boucher to go in. But the Caps are so well structured against the top 3 or 4 teams in the league. It's not going to work because the Caps are structured themselves.
Yeah, and as we mentioned there with Ranko, just 12 goals allowed this year. There are 2 teams that have allowed 14 goals, but one of them has to play an extra game. Has a game in hand against the Caps, so the defensive metrics are there for Vancouver. The big one nearly here Sunday from Mexico City, Estadio Olímpico
Universitario.
Cruz Azul for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Sunday, this is the first time, of course, the Whitecaps have been in this final. It's only the 3rd time a Canadian team has been in this final. They've got the watch party on Terry Fox Plaza. A reminder, this is a ticketed event. So the bag policy of BC Place supplies food and beverage is available inside the gates of the watch party. It's a $5 ticket. All proceeds going to the Whitecaps Foundation, and there is limited capacity. So if you are thinking of coming, get there early, right, and make sure you're not toting huge backpacks around with filled with booze. Can't have that.
You really just shouldn't bring a big bag anywhere. I saw the lineup for the bag check at BC Place last night. Don't bring bags.
Vancouver Canadians win their 4th straight, 9-5 over Hillsborough last night at Nat Bailey Stadium. They are trying to track down the Hops, who are the first half leaders in the Northwest League. Sees now 5 games back, 19 left in the first half. They really need to win 3 of the next 4 here at Nat Bailey to have a chance to track them down. Sean Keys with 3 RBI, and Jays number 10 prospect Cal Steven gets his first win at this level with 5 innings in his Nat Bailey Stadium debut. They are back at it tonight, and then Friday through Sunday matinees at the Nat. Tickets 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. And sticking with baseball, omission on my part, I meant to get to this yesterday. Shout out to Prince George's Jared Young. You may remember Jared liked the swing. They like the Canadian. So good on you, Jared Young. New CFL Commissioner Stuart Johnston has spoken on expansion. Quote, I think if our team at the CFL League office is able to generate growth for our 9 teams, I will be the commissioner who will be able to move forward with expansion. He had previously said that expansion is not a priority. And what it sounds like, reading between the lines there from Johnston, Blake, is that the existing 9 teams don't want to split current revenues. If Stewart's able to grow revenues for the lot, then they would consider bringing in a 10th partner to share in those revenues. Of course, that's one of the calculations you're making as a CFL team owner or the board of the 3 publicly owned franchises.
And there's not an obvious expansion location that would say, like generally in another sport, you got enough big cities where you can think, well, if we add that team, we get more revenue and all. But that's not necessarily going to be the case. You're kind of going to be forcing the issue a little bit with a CFL expansion team, where you're just hoping they stay above water a little bit because there's not a booming metropolis to move into. You're going to be moving to a smaller market where you just hope they're viable. That would be the success story there.
Yeah.
So
Oklahoma City through to the NBA Finals, which means no playoff games Friday. The 2 series last night wrapped up, so got a free Friday evening now. And are you ready for a new dynasty? The Thunder are the youngest team in the NBA with an average age of 24 years.
24.
And they have at least 2 first-round picks in the next 3 drafts. The other thing here, and this frankly should be encouraging for those smaller market teams who have superstars who'd want to stay there. If Indiana beats the Knicks, Blake, you could argue that these are 2 teams built on the back of Paul George trades. No, but they got tons of it, including Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from the Clippers.
Yeah, liquidated.
Way back when. Speaking of the Canadian MVP, players to win the MVP, lead the league in total points, and make the NBA Finals in a single season. Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan 4 times, and now Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Wow.
That is the who's who of the NBA. Kobe, Shaq, Kareem, Michael. They're one-name guys, and that's the company he's hanging with now, which is amazing.
What I love, too, about SGA being Canadian and hopefully representing our country in years to come, this isn't a guy doing it in a one-dimensional way. Like sometimes one-dimensional players can sort of have just a transcendent year. Everything, to use a hockey term, the PDO is just, everything falls into place.
Russell Westbrook.
Yeah. But SGA, you can get behind. You can see it just being who he is. Like, I think he's just this good.
And he's carried himself famously.
Yeah.
You may root against him because your team's playing against him, but I'm struggling to find a reason to root against this guy, the human being.
Did you see?
At least the one that he has shown us to date.
Did you see the NHL element to this story here? Brian Lawton, former NHL general manager, stepping onto the court to grab a loose ball. He says he didn't step onto the court. I don't know how. I need to see a better angle there. He was courtside.
Yeah.
And they were trying to throw the ball out of bounds to stop the clock, and Lawton went and grabbed it. And in the ensuing camera work, you see SGA lock eyes with Lawton. I don't know if SGA knows who he is or not.
Probably not.
But he looks at him, and he surreptitiously, but the camera's kind of going, "You, good idea, thank you," like basically thanking him for interfering on the play.
And then there is this, as one Raptors writer put it, we are a Pacers win away from the most Canadian non-Raptors final matchup in NBA history. I mean, the Pacers have a couple of Canadian players, Andrew Nembhard, of course, Gilgeous-Alexander on the Oklahoma City side, plus
longtime Raptor
Pascal Siakam, who is doing a lot of interviews and being asked a whole lot these days about compare this team to the NBA championship team you played on with the Raptors. And I know he still has his fans amongst Canadian basketball.
He's taking down OG Anunoby in the process, though.
I know. I know what you said yesterday. From a market perspective, Oklahoma City and Indianapolis is not exactly what you dream of if you're Adam Silver, but I think this could be a really good series from a basketball perspective.
And sometimes that wins the day. Sometimes that becomes a bit of a viral thing of, did you watch that game last night? It's awesome, and people do tune in. We'll see, but maybe.
And Blake, the other thing that's going on here, I mean, when we first started our show and through most of the coming on 14-year history of us doing this show together, we would talk about how competitively imbalanced the NBA is. And you had certain markets that just didn't have a prayer. It was almost like a two-tiered 100%, league.
Yeah.
Take a look at who is now winning and playing for NBA championships. You had Denver win a couple of years ago.
Minnesota making it as far as they did.
Yeah, like you've got Oklahoma City in now with Indianapolis, Indy on the cusp. You had Milwaukee win.
Cleveland's bounced back.
Yeah, Cleveland, albeit with LeBron, but
No, but Cleveland bouncing back without any of those players, and now to make it as far as they did.
Well, and Cleveland went to 3 straight finals there.
So,
anyways, league's getting a little more competitively balanced, and yet I find myself asking the question: is that what basketball fans writ large want? Or do they just want the dynasties and the big
and the stars? Yeah, absolutely.
Markets?
No, you got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. French Open, Gabriel Diallo, the Canadian, is out in 4 sets. And Victoria Mboko, she goes tomorrow. Shapovalov also today.
I do have a theory on these small markets, by the way.
What's that?
So the rise of analytics in sport may have been what levels the playing field here. Previously, money won out. Big market, they've got the money, they can pay the guys. Now in a cap world, with analytics as a tool, if you get the smartest people in tow in your small market team, you can get as good a team with less money and have success. It's Moneyball.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that plays into it to some degree. You see that in other sports as well. I mean, they're not an every year playoff team, but the Tampa Bay Rays, I mean, they operate on a sliver of the budget of some of the other teams and yet have been so good because their front office and their player development system is so good. I would add, and perhaps I'm influenced here as someone who covered the Raptors during the Brian Colangelo era, because his idea was, okay, and remember, this was on the heels of Vince Carter wanting out and T-Mac and all that. They were trying to get Chris Bosh re-signed at the time. Okay, if the big American star doesn't want to play here, let's go out and scour the world and build an international team.
Yeah.
And to some degree, you had that in San Antonio, right? Because Tony Parker was French and Manu Ginobili was Argentine, and Tim Duncan was American, but he grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands, so a little bit different. Blake, look at who some of the stars are. You have a Greek star, Giannis, in Milwaukee, that got to the top.
Luka.
You have a Serbian star, Jokic, who got Denver to the top, alongside a Canadian
Slovenian star, Canadian star.
You got a Slovenian star in Luka. Yeah. You have another Canadian star in Shea. Right? So I wonder if that's playing into it as well, is that you just have superstars who have a broader perspective than the American experience and just wanting to play in L.A., New York, Miami, or one of the sexiest markets out there.
Yeah, maybe.
Whistler Golf Club poll question results from Wednesday asked you, what should the Canucks offer Minnesota for center Marco Rossi? The 15th overall pick was involved in all 3 of these, all 4, I should say. So Garland, Lekramaki, Wielander, DPD. Who won the poll?
Garland. 15th and Garland.
Correct. Percentage?
58.
68. Lekramaki second, 20%. Just 6% for Wielander and DPD. Boy, the comments were replete with no, he's too small.
Seeing that again today, because I tweeted about this most recently.
Everybody seems to be sweating the fact that Marco Rossi is 5'9" and 180-something pounds, as opposed to 23-year-old center coming off a 60-point season.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. We'd all love them all to be 6'3" and fast, and those guys are called Leon Draisaitl, and they don't exist in reality.
Yeah. And a lot of you said, and rightfully so, wait, if Minnesota's given up a small player in Rossi, they're going to take a small player back in Garland. I hear your mouse. I hear your typing. But some draw distinctions between wing and center, right? You're going to employ 8 wingers if one of them is small. Okay, so be it, but you want sort of bigger guys.
And you see also the grit and determination of Connor Garland. And not that Rossi doesn't have it, but I think the Garland's got it just a little bit more.
Errors and omissions. We will start with Dave Hall, very professionally, tweeted yesterday. Look, AHL playoff goaltending records have not been the easiest thing to track over the years, and Dave Hall unearthed that Mika Norinen actually had an AHL playoff run with 6 shutouts. This is a former Vancouver Canuck, too.
Yes, yeah.
And so Artur Shilov's and his 4 shutouts is not tied for the record. Dave wanted that corrected. Good on Dave. Correction's a sign of strength, not weakness. You made a mistake with Matt Bartkowski. You thought he didn't play an NHL game after leaving the Vancouver Canucks.
Or at least in the first year after, but he did. He played like 15 or something like that. Yeah.
And then you've stepped in it when you have our 2 gatekeepers, Yerke and Colin, in planning with separate tweets at me regarding Switzerland. We were talking about the Canucks prospect with Rimouski, who's Swiss, and I just mentioned, well, I don't know if he's, Swiss French or Swiss German.
Basile Sonsonen.
Oui. Colin, Switzerland is more than just French and German. You did not include the Italian and
Romanche. Yeah.
Romanche-speaking people. One small country, but 4 distinct and passionate communities and their languages. I should know better because I did know there was a Swiss Italian connection there.
Romanche. I had long
I
conversations.
did not know about Romanche.
I had long conversations
I'm new to Romanche.
with people in Switzerland when I was at the Spengler this year about Romanche. It's a very small and dwindling population of speakers there, but still officially on the
yes. And
list.
Yerke informs that Sansonen is from the canton of Fribourg, which is overwhelmingly
Fribourg-Gotteron, right?
Or Fribourg, which is overwhelmingly French.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Thought we nailed that down.
Good intel, because you come to this show for Vancouver Canucks talk and to learn a thing or two about Switzerland.
Yeah, we're renowned for it.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about and keep it local.
Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir.
Arrivederci. Ciao.